Social Security is projected to have a shortfall in the near future. I mean, it used to be the distant future, but it's becoming nearer and nearer. And according to the last stats, we're going to be out of money, not out of complete money with Social Security, but not being able to pay 100% of benefits potentially within 10 years, maybe sooner. So Social Security is in trouble. What should you do? Should you change your strategy as to when to claim because of the trouble that Social Security is facing? This is going to be the topic of conversation. Let me bring in my co-host, Tony Shore. Tony, welcome to the show. We've talked about this before. Social Security is not doing so hot, is it?
Here's another truth. Social Security is dying.
When you say it with such gravitas, I mean,
Yes.
it sounds like it's a real thing, right?
Does it feel better when they say it that way?
No, no, it doesn't.
You know, we had a show last week where we talked about, and if you missed it, watch it. We talked about the potential of eliminating taxes on Social Security. And you brought up some very good points at the end, and I kind of brushed it off because we just don't know. But you asked a couple of questions that we laughed at, but I want to bring those back up before we get into whether or not people should change their behavior, because that's what we're going to talk about.
Sure.
I want to recap what we talked about and some other changes recently that are potentially speeding up the Social Security running out of money to pay 100% of benefits. Now, again, I want to reiterate that Social Security is not going to go away.
And what you're really saying, though, is if nothing changes, the Social Security fund that helps out in 10 plus years, they'll have to decrease payments. They won't have enough to pay 100% of everybody's Social Security. But Social Security continues as long as there are people working in the United States, right?
That's right.
Paying Social Security tax.
Right. So it's not going to go away completely, but
right.
Some people might have a haircut. And the question is, well, who, when, why, how? And we don't know all that. But one of the points that you brought up last show was we were talking about taxation, and you asked, well, if we eliminate tax on Social Security, won't that destroy the Social Security? Won't it be eating itself? And I brushed over it, but I want to bring it back. And to help with that, I want to add a new twist to our podcast. I want to bring in an expert. And let me just add the expert to this show here. I'm going to try and do this, Tony. And you know, bear with me as I'm figuring this out. Because
no problem. I love it when we have guests.
Yes. Here we go. So we have our new guest here. For those that are watching, you can see, but those that are listening, you may not realize that there is now a dolphin with headphones and a microphone on the show.
Wow.
And we are going to welcome you to the show. Thanks for joining us. Amelia, welcome to the show. You're on a podcast with me and Tony, my co-host. We're talking about retirement planning and in particular Social Security.
Thank you for having me on the show. I'm delighted to join you and Tony for this discussion on retirement planning and Social Security. What would you like to explore first?
Well, in our last show, Tony asked the question about Social Security taxation and where that money goes. So where does the money that goes from Social Security payments back as taxes, does that go to the general fund or to Social Security itself?
The money collected from Social Security taxes generally goes into two trust funds, the Old Age and Survivors Insurance Trust Fund and the Disability Insurance Trust Fund. These funds are used to pay out benefits to current retirees, survivors, and disabled individuals. It's a common misconception that these funds go into the general fund. They are specifically earmarked for Social Security purposes.
Oh, thank you for that. I'm very useful. And you mentioned that there are two different funds, the disability and then the old age fund. The old age fund is what we know as Social Security, and the disabled fund is specifically for those that are on Social Security disability. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. The Old Age and Survivors Insurance Trust Fund is what most people refer to as Social Security, providing benefits to retirees and their families. The Disability Insurance Trust Fund, on the other hand, is specifically designated for individuals who are eligible for Social Security disability insurance. These funds are managed separately to ensure that the benefits are available for those who qualify.
So, Tony, that idea right there is something I wanted to bring up as well. So first, eliminating the taxes, to your point, would hurt Social Security. It would speed up the demise. And there's two different programs here. One of them has more money than the other. So when we say, when is it going to run out, or how much of a haircut's going to be, I've read that there is 17% haircut, but then I've also read a 25% haircut, and it's those two programs. Right now they're separate, but if you combine them, then it's about 20% or 17%. But if you don't combine them, then it's over 20%. So it's difficult to say, but again, that legislation has sped up the shortfall date.
Yeah, that was going to be my point, Dan, is that it seems like it's funny because people keep thinking they're going to make changes to shore up Social Security. They're going to do things like raise the full retirement age, or you've talked about the possibility of raising the limit to how much they take out Social Security, like people making over, what is it, $174,000 or something, then on everything they make beyond that, they're not paying Social Security tax on that money. So Elon Musk, who, if he's making, $800 million a year, he's only paying into U.S. Social Security tax on $173,000 of that.
And that's
money.
Earned income, not, you don't pay Social Security on capital gains or
right.
Most of the rich people make their money. We're talking wages, right?
Yeah. Actually, wages that FICA. But my point is all the changes they've made so far, they haven't made those changes to shore up Social Security like we thought they would. They've actually done things to help people increase their Social Security benefits, which I don't want to be on the side of complaining about, but like taking away the windfall elimination provision, removing that. So a lot of government workers who have worked in the private sector or do on the side, they're going to get their full Social Security benefits where they weren't before. That depletes the Social Security fund faster. They're talking about completely removing Social Security taxes, which personally, if you ask you and I, should they eliminate Social Security taxes? Our standard answer would be, yeah, they should not tax Social Security. And most people would say, please don't tax my Social Security. If you did a poll, I bet 95% of the people or more, 99% would say, yeah, I think they should eliminate tax on Social Security. But the implication is then it just speeds up, rather than 13 years, we might be 8 years away,
right?
Or 7.
It's right. And in fact, it's what we talked about. We both agreed that adding or removing taxation is great, but it will speed it up. And you brought up another point, which is, well, what about the windfall elimination provision? What I want to do is add Amelia back. That's a good question for Amelia. Amelia, do you think, can you tell us if there's any research on how much the shortfall is going to be sped up because of the Social Security Fairness Act?
The Social Security Fairness Act, which enhances benefits by repealing the windfall elimination provision in government mission, is expected to add about $196 billion to Social Security benefits over the next decade. This could potentially accelerate the exhaustion of the Old Age and Survivors Insurance Trust Fund, which is currently projected to pay full benefits only until 2035. While the exact impact on the timeline is uncertain, the increased cost may hasten the insolvency of Social Security. However, the Act does provide immediate financial relief to those affected, with increased payments starting in April 2025 and retroactive payments for 2024.
So, yeah, there's no, I think the last survey out from the Social Security Trust Fund board was in April of last year, 2024.
So they haven't updated it, but from what she just said, from what the information she gathered, it sounds like it will, because it said it's going to increase the payouts by
over $1 billion, right?
Over $1 billion.
Year,
so
right?
That's gotta affect it.
Right. So then, looking at the Social Security, well, what happens if we do have a shortfall? So let's imagine we do have a shortfall of 20%. How's that going to impact people, and who's going to feel that?
Well, I might have an idea here, Dan.
With Social Security a thing of the past, she can't afford to retire.
Yes. What is that, The Simpsons?
I don't know what that's
I think
so.
you're right. Some people will not be able to retire. But I think, though, a lot of the idea, well, it's going to impact everyone equally. I don't know if that's the way things work, because that's not how it's worked in the past. I don't think that I don't know. Obviously, this is conjecture, but maybe though low income earners will be spared from the shortfall. Maybe, you know how they have bend points so that the more you make, the less you get back from Social Security. It favors the low income earner. Maybe they'll use those to have the reductions favor the lower income earner, meaning instead of spreading it equally 20% across the board for everybody, maybe it'll be based on provisional income. So people that are below that threshold now that don't pay tax, maybe they don't see any cuts to their Social Security, but the people that are getting taxed, 85% of it being taxed, maybe they see a 50% reduction. So how does that change it? So what I'm trying to say is we don't know that it's going to be across the board. We don't know when it's going to be.
Sure.
So when you're thinking, well, what should I do? If you make a decision now and then you're on the cusp and then you say, I'm going to cut, I'm going to take it early, right? I'm going to take it before it goes away. It's totally reasonable. That logic, totally reasonable. But history suggests that might be short-sighted, because in the past, what they've done is they've changed it for the future, and they've changed it to be favoring the lower income earner. That's what the whole point of Social Security was. And what about the disability? Are they going to cut 20% to the disabled, who clearly are way behind the 8 ball already, taking Social Security in your 40s, say, for disability? Like, I think reasonable people say, well, they shouldn't see a cut. But is that fair? I mean, so I don't know, but I think that people that are thinking, let me just take it before it runs out, and at least I get mine. If you look at it from a purely mathematical perspective, yeah, that makes total sense, right? If they're going to cut everyone 20%, I might as well get it, because, I'd rather get it now full than, delay. Yeah, I'll get more, but I'm going to lose 20%. That's tough to make up. That turns the quote unquote break even point probably from early 80s to mid 80s or even later. But I don't think that's the way it works, Tony. I don't think that's what's going to happen. And so I caution people against that. I think you don't know what's going to happen, and to just assume it's going to be straight cut across the board, I don't like that logic.
No, I would say it wouldn't be. I mean, I think that they're going to have to raise the, full retirement age is going to get higher from 67 to 70 maybe, and then they're probably going to start taxing people who make more, over 170, whatever the number is, thousand a year. They're going to start putting Social Security tax on more of their money.
Right. I think they'll change it. I mean, one other point that you made in the last show was, and you just said it, I think you just said it again today. You said everything we've done in the past 20 years has been to help people get more from Social Security.
Right. That's what I said.
I'm going to fight you on that.
Well, I didn't say, you're putting some words in my mouth.
Well, but you're thinking that we haven't really had any changes to Social Security that have shorted up in any recent history. But we have. Emilio, when was the restricted application and the file and suspend strategy implemented in Social Security?
The restricted application and the file and suspend strategy were part of Social Security claiming strategies. The changes to these strategies were implemented with the Bipartisan Budget Act of 2015. The file and suspend strategy was effectively eliminated for new retirees starting April 30th, 2016. The restricted application for spousal benefits was phased out for individuals born on or after January 2nd, 1954. These changes were aimed at closing loopholes that allowed for increased benefits under certain conditions.
So those loopholes that were closed, would that actually increase the solvency of Social Security?
Yes, closing those loopholes was intended to improve the solvency of Social Security by eliminating strategies like file and suspend and restricted applications, which allowed some individuals to receive higher benefits than all received. The changes were aimed at reducing the financial strain on the Social Security system. This, in turn, helped to extend the life of the trust funds by conserving resources that might have been paid out through these strategies.
So there you go, Tony.
Yeah, I forgot. They closed those loopholes. Yeah, the file and suspend.
I knew those answers. You knew these answers, but it just sounds so much better coming from a British dolphin.
Why? Yeah, I was going to ask, why does your special guest, who is a dolphin with Dolphin Financial Group, why does she have a British accent? I didn't know that. So she's a British dolphin, I guess. That's interesting.
That was the default, so I went with it. Just sounds good.
I like having
each week.
I like having an AI guest as part of the show. I love that.
Keeps us in check, right? And I think that's
does.
useful if we have something that we don't think about, we can always just ask the AI.
Yeah.
So what do? All right. So let's just assume that we're not going to get our act together. In the past, it wasn't until 1984 that we made changes, the big changes from Reagan,
Right.
but those weren't issued and voted on or put to Congress until 1983. So it wasn't like, oh yeah, in the early 70s, let's figure this out because we're going to run out. It was last minute, right?
Yeah.
I think we're going to do the same here.
Oh, they're going to kick that can as far down the road. Politicians don't want to deal with it.
No. There is some legislation out though to fix Social Security, I believe. Yeah. So
some people have talked about it, but I don't think anything's gotten too far. And my point, Dan, was since those provisions, like the since eliminating the file and suspend strategies,
yes.
Since they eliminated those, everything since that point has actually added back to it. And that's my point.
Yes.
Yeah. So they haven't done anything since that. They did that. And then they've done a bunch of things that basically, I bet, either offset or go beyond that to take deplete the Social Security Trust Fund or whatever they call it. Is that what they call it? The trust fund?
Yeah.
I think. Yeah.
That's right. The Social Security Trust Fund. It reminds me of I think it was Laurel and Hardy. Or maybe it was the Stooge. I don't remember. Maybe it was Mickey, Tom and Jerry. It's like giving out money, 1 for you, 1 for me, 2 for you, 1, 2 for me, 3 for you, 1, 2, 3 for me, right? And he's giving out the money. They kind of took 2 steps forward, 3 steps back.
Yep.
So what do you do about this? Well, the first thing I would suggest is you plan for it. You think it through and say, all right, if there is a shortfall, and let's call it 20% just to start, how can I replace that? What can I do now to replace the shortfall, which may or may not happen in 10 years? And you have that conversation now because it's a lot easier to plan for that.
Mm-hmm.
And then if it doesn't happen, where the shortfall, which is what I'm guessing is going to happen, it's going to impact future, younger generations. I think it'll be shored up and fixed by then. But if it doesn't get fixed, you'll have it. If it does get fixed, well, then you'll have this extra money that you can repurpose for something else, because Lord knows there's going to be other expenses down the road that you can use it for. And it's always good to have a little safety net. Now, that doesn't help the people that are living paycheck to paycheck. And again, just like we talked about taxation, if you can't bridge the gap, if you can't delay Social Security just because you can't, whether or not it's going to be a haircut, whether or not it's taxable is irrelevant. You're going to make that decision based on your current need. But for those that are doing advanced planning that might be in their 50s now, maybe now you start to say, well, I'm going to need to save a little bit more in case there is a Social Security shortfall.
Mm-hmm.
Or you get on the horn to your congressman or woman and say, hey, let's get some legislation in there. In fact, let me find out. This is a good question hey, Amelia, is there any current legislation out in the U.S. to actually shore up and improve Social Security shortfall that's impending?
As of March 2025, the U.S. Congress has passed the Social Security Fairness Act, which focuses on eliminating the windfall elimination provision of government pension offset, benefiting over 3.2 million recipients like teachers and firefighters. However, this act doesn't directly tackle the broader Social Security shortfall. Other proposals, like the Social Security Expansion Act, aim to punch this by expanding benefits and applying clean payroll taxes to higher incomes. The overall financial sustainability of the program remains a concern, with ongoing discussions about necessary reforms.
Yeah,
So it's basically a no, nothing specific to shore it up. They have proposed. Sounds like they're they're
there's some
talking about
proposals
it.
out there, right?
They're proposals. Yeah.
I don't know. I remember when Biden was president and I said he's going to be the one to fix Social Security. I said so because he was a lame duck. And I thought, what better chance, right?
Yeah.
He has nothing to lose and
Right.
only to gain. I guess the same could be said about Trump because he's one-term president now. So he could theoretically just put in a bill, sign a bill to fix Social Security, not worrying about getting reelected. This could be the chance. If you think about what's going to happen in 4 years when there's a new election, we're going to be 4 years closer to Social Security's running out. So will that be a really hot topic during that election? I don't know. I'm thinking, no, it's a third rail. So it could be my logic for saying Biden was going to do it, which I was wrong. He did do the Social Security Fairness Act, but I was wrong about him fixing it. Maybe Trump's going to be the one. I would love for somebody to do it. And if it's him, it's great. If not, that means we're going to like maybe one more president to actually make it happen.
Yeah. Well, if they're actually going to shore up Social Security, pun intended, I think that you're not going to do it without upsetting someone. There's going to be some group of people that are going to end up on the short end to pay for that shortfall. So whether it's the people that make over X amount of dollars, having more of their income from their employer tax, a higher Social Security tax, or more of their money actually taxed, the 6.2%. That's one thing that could happen. Then they're upset. If you raise the full retirement age, the people that affects say, hey, it's going to take me longer. I'm going to get less in Social Security. So it does affect people, but we have to have it. And so I think it makes sense to do something like that to shore it up. I think in the math, I've heard it explained. You've talked a little bit about it, but they'll have to look at the math. Like if they completely remove the cap on how much of your income can be are subject to the Social Security tax that they take out, the FICA. If they removed that, would that completely solve the solvency issue? I would think it would, because, when you've got the top, 5% of earners only paying Social Security tax on such a tiny, tiny portion of all that money. Of course, those people don't necessarily make their money and pay regular FICA tax on it. It comes from other.
Right.
It depends on what the source of that income is for the wealthy, right?
You'd also have to change the bend points and the paybacks for those wealthy people. All right. So Elon Musk starts putting in, paying Social Security FICA tax on 100 million in revenue income. When he's 65, maybe he's going to get $2 million a month. So you have to kind of figure. It's not that simple, but you're right. People are going to be complaining no matter what. There's going to be, but I think if both sides are complaining, then you got a victory. Then if everyone's complaining about it, then you've done something right. Because I'll tell you right now, everyone's going to be complaining if there's a shortfall. Because even if you have wealth and you don't need the money, all those around you will be feeling the pain, and it's going to be a lot of grumbling. Yeah. So what do you do? Social Security's in trouble. We're not denying that. I think planning for a shortfall makes sense. I don't think changing your filing strategy based on there being an impending shortfall is the way to go. I would rather keep the filing strategy separate from the saving strategy. So you say, all right, if it makes sense for me to delay till 67, then I'm going to continue to do that, irrespective of whether or not there's a cut looming. But let's just say there is a cut looming. I'm not going to take it early. I'm going to just save more over here if possible. I think that's the better strategy.
Sure.
Not necessarily what people want to hear. But if you don't like that strategy, then watch our show that we did on legislation on how you can get involved and call your local congressman, senator, for your state, your local representative, and get your opinion. We did a whole show on all the different potential strategy changes, and there was a software tool to let you kind of feel how you feel about each of those changes. Go do that. Watch that show and get involved locally. Otherwise, you're sitting on your hands, and that's okay, but just don't complain, right? Don't complain if things go south. It's a potential reality, and if you're in talking about financial planning, you got to factor it in.
Or cuts to Medicare or Social Security.
God bless Social Security.
Indeed. Let's just say, I want to bring Amelia back in. Thank you, Amelia, for being a guest on our show. I hope you have a great day. And on behalf of Tony and I, we wish you well. Maybe we'll see you next week.
Thank you so much. I hope you have a wonderful day as well. Looking forward to possibly seeing you next week.
So, Tony, that's it. Thanks for a good show. And maybe we'll bring in the AI next week and we'll improve on the capabilities, but it's going to keep us in check, I think.
Yeah.
We'll catch everyone next week.
All matters discussed in today's show are for informational purposes only.
This show is not investment advice.
Dan Riddle nor Dolphin Financial Group are affiliated or endorsed by any government agency.
Investment advisory services are offered through Dolphin Wealth Management, Inc., a registered investment advisor in the state of Florida.
Insurance products and services are offered through Dolphin Insurance, Inc.
Dolphin Wealth Management, Inc. and Dolphin Insurance, Inc. are affiliated companies doing businesses as Dolphin Financial Group.
You should talk to someone at Dolphin Financial Group before implementing any of these strategies or ideas.